You've never seen it?
I've never seen it.
Oh, my.
Welcome back, Colin. Welcome back, everybody, to this little show that we do here on the internet. We all kind of know how the pattern goes. Colin shows us something a little shorter and a little bit more lighthearted, and it is now my turn to bring us back down into depression as we re-enter these decades of darkness. The director of this film is a scholar and a poet by heart, and he's raised and inspired by his father, who is also a scholarly and poetic person, who'd be born into this world that would soon discover the first tools with which the human race could truly destroy itself. This existential threat would raise some of the most important, yet paradoxically redundant questions humans have ever had to face. Is the advancement of science and technology truly ever altruistic, or do our tendencies towards violence undo our attempts to be good? Can we escape our struggles against animalistic depravity through art, or is all expression a desperate call into a void of empty space for some kind of help?
Tony, I don't know what you're doing. We already watched 2001: A Space Odyssey, and we watched that in 70mm. So,
do we know what we truly desire, either as individuals or as a species, as a peoples? And do we truly want to know what we desire? Here's hoping we can find the answers to this question as we enter the zone of exclusion. Colin, today I present to you your favorite part, your favorite gag.
this Celtic rune with a cane glued to another cane, a nut, and then some sort of cyclops eye with big cheekbones.
It's upside down.
No, that's correct. Art is... Oh, I didn't mean to rip that
That's
out.
fine.
Art is subjective.
Uh,
And you telling me it's upside down is like David Lynch telling me how to feel about his movies. Andrei Tarkovsky, uneducated man on this director, so that's all well and good then. Stalker. I've heard this title. I've seen the front of this. I got no clue.
Today we'll be watching the 1979 Soviet-era pseudo-sci-fi film Stalker. This movie was directed by Andrei Tarkovsky, also directed movies like Mirror, Solaris, if you happen to have seen those. Screenplay is written by Arkady and Boris Strogatsky, who also wrote the book Roadside Picnic, which this movie is adapted from. Colin, do you happen to know anything about this film, about this actor, or this director, rather?
I know Tarkovsky is a very serious name among art film circles, and I know that this movie, purely for invitation alone, is very important. Never watched it, don't know anything about it. I didn't even know this was like sci-fi or anything.
Do you happen to have like any of the iconography
No.
or anything? No. Well, that's great. That's cool. In research for this and in just being like interested, I've had a lot of this stuff sort of spoiled, though there's plenty to spoil, so I don't know. It's a big film. It's a long one. It's fucking almost 3 hours long, so I hope you're ready to strap in for this one. Tarkovsky is kind of well known for his poetic filmmaking and also for his slow pace, length of several of his films, Stalker included. With all that in mind, everybody watching back home, I hope you just sit back and let this film wash over you. Follow us into the zone. This is Stalker.
Зона — это очень сложная система ловушек, что ли. Но стоит тут появиться людям, как все здесь приходит в движение. Ваше самое заветное желание. Самое выстраданное.
So, Colin, do you want to take us through a quick plot synopsis of 1979's Stalker?
On a very literal note, Stalker is a film about three people in very different, seemingly, vocations of their life. One, as it turns out, is a religious zealot. One is a logic-based scientist who looks down upon those who are religious zealots, but he seemingly is searching for something. And then one is a writer or an artist who... all these people, I guess, are all looking for their purpose. They meet up in a bar in what seems to be a police state that they currently live in this vague world of wherever the fuck it is.
Soviet Russia, different time, different place, whatever.
Or is it Soviet Russia? Who fucking knows?
Yeah.
Like, that's not the point. They are taken to a place led by this religious zealot called the Zone, a man who seemingly does this with all of his free time before he leaves. His wife is seemingly upset at him because this is all he ever does. He says he's going to come home, stay back, much like a man who constantly goes out to his job and never comes home and stays there like he promises he's going to. But this is this man's purpose. They go to the Zone. Lots of indirect passages to try and get to this thing called the Room, where they will get all of the answers. That is the whole point of this. You're not allowed to go there straight. You have to take all these weird roundabout things, and the Zone works differently every time you go in it. It's a thing set with a bunch of booby traps. And by the time they finally get there, none of these people are convinced that they want to go in, or if they do want to go in, they want to go in for all the wrong reasons, according to this religious zealot. We cut back to them at the bar. We get sort of a wrap-up with our main guy, which we'll get into more when we're talking about the film. And God is dead.
Yeah, no. And this is one of these things, obviously, I'm going to ask you real quick, just real quick. Did you like the film or no?
I think it's great. It took me a bit to get on the level of what the movie was trying to do.
Yeah.
And once I feel like I got on the movie's level, and I got sort of like what to me it's trying to say and what it's getting across, I really started to connect with it and what it was doing. I brought this up as we were watching this. It reminded me a lot of what I love about Star Trek TOS.
Okay.
Which is there are lots of conversations about ethics and morals surrounding how we as human beings should live our lives and what is the best way to do that. And a lot of times, like in Star Trek, there's not easy, simple answers because human beings are complicated, difficult creatures.
These words and the words that follow were not written only for the Yangs, but for the Coms as well.
The Coms?
They must apply to everyone, or they mean nothing. Do you understand?
And we all have our own different experiences. I mean, I don't remember if you talked about this in the beginning or we talked about it off camera. You know, sort of like you talked about people saying that they have their explicit, like, interpretation of this film, and they sort of phrase it as, I figured it out.
Yeah.
That is not how art works.
Yeah.
You don't get to say that you figured this piece of art out and no one else gets to, like, say it's anything else. Once I figured out my interpretation, that is what this movie became for me.
Yeah.
But as far as like other people's interpretations, I don't have anyone else's life experience, and I think that kind of plays into thematically what the movie's trying to get across. But once again, we'll get into that more so when we're getting.
Yeah, that's the thing is, the way this is done, the way this movie was made, I think, it's kind of like a Rothko painting. I think I've talked to Colin about this off camera.
I think we've talked about this on the show, if I remember correctly.
More specifically, the way that Tarkovsky builds up the film is he takes each individual element, like music, like visuals, poetry, references to interesting people in life and in reality, and he layers them one thing after another in this very complicated, almost like a cake. It is like a painting, because the more layers you put on, the less you'll see each individual one for itself, but the more interesting the whole thing becomes, right? You don't really... I hope one day I get to actually see a Rothko painting in real life, because I know seeing prints of it and recreations of it just are not the same thing as seeing the actual paint there on the wall that somebody's like gone through all this effort to make. And with that sort of thing, each like piece of like filmmaking, I think, is very important individually and kind of leads your way down like what you take from this film alongside like the thematics that you draw from, right? In that vein, Colin, I want to ask you want to talk about real quick any like filmmaking decisions, like creative decisions that kind of lead you down your path, right?
I want to say, prior to us getting into the zone, the thing that I find super interesting about this is how the film's visuals and aesthetics, not just through the use of black and white / like sepia tone cinematography, but just how like wherever they filmed, or if they filmed on sets that they were doing, the uses of like diesel trains going through towns and everything. It's the only part of the film that feels like you're sort of in a movie, and I feel like that's very purposeful. The opening sequence feels a lot like, to me, Casablanca by way of Blade Runner. We're in this gigantic dystopian police state, and these people, it is the most straightforward section of the movie. These people simply need to get out of town before they are caught by their local Gestapo. Is really all it is. Why they are not allowed to leave, what would happen if they got caught leaving, we don't really know. And that's not the point. It's very simple and it's set up, and you could probably understand what's going on without dialogue. Which I think is very important for sort of like the universality of the film. And as far as like getting you sucked in the beginning, I think it's really important to have that simplicity to juxtapose it against the next hour and a half. Which is where the complications of entering the zone happens, and where I think the movie, using this like layering technique that you're talking about, is almost kind of Tarkovsky fucking with the audience a little bit, in my personal opinion. I think there are lots of complications that are intentionally there to be obtuse, to ultimately make a point by the end of the film. Like I said, I have lots of thoughts for what I think this movie is thematically trying to say, and I would like to get that out there, but I do think the film is intentionally being obtuse and kind of like difficult to access in a lot of its dialogue, to try and make the audience feel as if they are in similar shoes to how everyone else is feeling. Because you'll just have these long shots where you'll have a whole conversation play out, and a lot of times it starts on someone's face, or maybe not someone's face, and the whole conversation will play out on that singular person, even if there's a large amount of back and forth going on. And it gets disorienting at a certain point.
And in that sort of vein, a lot of what he's doing kind of feels like what I kind of wrote down as like the longest sleight of hand tricks ever. Case in point, like one of the main ones is we have just entered the zone. We're following this path that's being laid by the Stalker through this like grasslands, right? There's this burnt out car, there's a corpse in the car, and you are told, like, all right, the professor is he's heading up the group. He's moving forward, and you get this shot that feels like a POV shot where, you know, we're slowly lurching closer and closer and closer to the car, expecting there to be some reveal. You know, you see even the grass kind of like parts, like people's walking through the grass.
No, the camera has become a diegetic like sort of being watching the scene.
Yeah. And just as you're getting used to that and you're wondering, all right, what's going to be the trick? What's going to happen? Instead, a very uneventful thing goes on. It's revealed that that was not the POV of the professor, because the professor and the group walk out in front of the camera on the other side of the car. And you think, well, if that's not their if that's not their point of view, then whose point of view is this? Am I supposed to be walking through the grass, or is this like some supernatural sort of thing? It just puts you off kilter. And it's the setup, the trick is not to like catch your attention like that and to try and fool your eyes away from something. It's to get you absorbed totally into this thing. It's kind of like hypnotizing, I guess. It hypnotizes you into a certain way of thinking about a shot.
It's a trance, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah. And then you don't even realize that the setup was going on and that there's this trick going on.
The way that also plays into basic like visual filmmaking and storytelling, like that particular shot in the film does this more and more throughout it, which is we're just kind of like panning across characters and then onto objects. How we push in past that once we get through the car window and we've already seen the corpse, and then our characters walk past. We then sort of use a rack focus, which this movie really likes to use quite a bit, and we get this nice wide where the camera fucking just pushes forward a little bit and we see all these cars and tanks and like wrecked just dilapidation in the background, and we're sort of getting more of a taste of like this world the way it went out, even if it wasn't necessarily like a war that was like super violent on both sides. You kind of get this like idea that we didn't go out peacefully and then we just sat here to rot.
How does that kind of play into your idea about the film, if you want to get into that?
Thematically, I think this film is about, like I said, you have these three perspectives, but it's not necessarily going out of its way to side with any of these three people. This is a film from a omniscient narrator, not necessarily a literal narration, but an omniscient being watching upon these three people and sort of like how religion and these ideas of life play out among three people with three different perspectives. How does God systemically affect these people? The idea of God, even though God isn't really brought up much until probably the very end. The room is God to me. That's not... I don't think that's a fucking leap that the film is, you know, being like, I know this is hard to fucking understand.
Yeah, no, it literally says all you really need to know before you enter the room is have faith and believe in what you're thinking of, I guess.
But for me, a big moment where something clicked right towards the end is I don't think anything in the zone is necessarily literally where these people are going. The film, as far as I'm concerned, where the literal stuff is happening, starts and ends when these guys walk into the bar.
Yeah.
Some of the most common places of religious discussion, you know, I grew up in the evangelical church. My grandpa was a pastor. It's something I haven't believed in quite a long time. It's a lot of brainwashing that occurs in this, and this is where I guess a lot of my personal baggage is coming into the movie. A lot of evangelizing happens when you have a pastor trying to disguise getting you to believe in God as a social event. You invite these people out and say, I'll pay for dinner. Let's go out and have it. And then you sit down and then they ambush you.
Yeah.
In the booth of a restaurant to talk about this. I think all the events that happen are sort of like these hyper stylized metaphorical versions of what was ultimately a theological debate going on. over the table at this bar. You have a lot of people hurling and screaming insults each other about how they disagree on certain things. And then by the end, you have 3 people ostensibly just diametrically opposed to how they're working, and they're sitting with their backs turned, but in the same orientation they were sitting at when they're at the bar table.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Uh-huh.
You know, when they're just outside the precipice of the room,
Yeah.
and they're all back to back. That's crazy.
And if he's using this as an opportunity to try and preach God to these people, it's like the zone is this place to where, oh, anything can happen. And like a lot of religious people, they will use hoops to try and justify inconsistencies in their own text. Oh, well, if this thing in the Old Testament happens, but then it's contradicted by this thing in the New Testament, well, how does that make sense? Well, you know, oh, you just have to have faith, or you have to ask God. Or they'll think of, like, out of context verses and try and do it. That is the zone. The zone is a place where, well, there's no straightforward answer like science is.
Yeah.
We have to take all these backwards places. Oh, you deceived me and you used me to go through this place and do something for you?
Yeah.
Well, you just needed to have faith, friend. Yeah, I handed you 2 matchsticks that are exactly the same size.
Yeah, I wanted you to go through the meat grinder first. Of
Yeah.
course. It was a test of your faith, and now you're a wonderful person and a great judge of character. And that's really fucking interesting. That's a really good point. I would have never thought about that. And it really it really comes into this idea once again. One of the obvious things that the film does is it switch from sepia tone to color. We've talked about this a little bit. I like to compare it to The Wizard of Oz, right? Wizard of Oz, that's like the big thing, that's the big event, the big turning point in the movie, where you're stepping out of like reality and into fantasy.
Yeah.
And, you know, in a lot of interpretations, people think, and I even sometimes feel, that the reason things suddenly switch to color is like, this feels like home to the Stalker. This feels like a good place. It feels like the one place that I can feel comfortable. And that's why it becomes colorful. It becomes like real.
Well,
but if you're looking at it through that lens, there's already a precedent for like that being a change specifically to fantasy. It's like one of those layers, right?
Yeah, it's colorful, and it's this large, gigantic, open space where he has control of how people are perceiving things.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to preach, that's the whole advantage. And I mean, during that big final discussion, we have our writer sort of getting angry at the Stalker because he says, you get off on this, ostensibly.
Yeah.
Your version of power is controlling how we perceive things, when in reality, it's like you have no more, like you're no better than us, basically. You're telling us that we're awful because we have these like sinful desires or whatever to like have like money or have fame through our writing and have people remember us or have like some kind of scientific discovery to where we 100% know what's going on. But you get off to this idea of controlling people. You are no better than us. But the Stalker's perspective, like a lot of religious people, I'm giving you hope.
Yeah.
I'm giving you the thing that you can't destroy. It's an ideological discussion over a bar table. Like, I don't know. I think that's interesting.
It is very, very interesting.
And then a whole other facet of that is the final shot, which for a split second I was like, okay, do I have nothing figured out? But then I remembered one line earlier in the movie. You know, the final shot of the film is his daughter, which they established as someone who's handicapped, doesn't have the use for legs. And, you know, earlier he says, like, maybe I should bring my wife and monkey here.
Yeah.
Which is the name of his daughter.
No.
And it shows her reading some kind of book. You don't see the opening of that. I would assume it's some kind of religious text. And then it shows her looking over at 3 glasses and making them seemingly move with telekinesis. And I didn't get that at first, but then I suddenly remembered, but he gives this whole speech about how young and malleable human beings are, and how ostensibly they can take abuse. And old people are hard and rotted like a tree, and they'll crumble under pressure.
Yeah.
As someone who grew up brainwashed ostensibly by a cult, the earlier you start with someone, the easier it is to change their perspective. And as a child, having this feeling of superiority over people because you get told by your parents you have all the answers.
Yeah.
And when you hear someone talk about science and evolution, and they're talking about it with certainty, but they have evidence to back it up, and all you have is this book. Yes, no, you have power. You have a literal, what you perceive as this impossible miracle-like power over other people, and you are better than these people, but you're fucking miserable because everyone hates you. Mm-hmm. Because all you can do is tell people just how awful they are. Yeah. And what is this child, if not someone who is now ostracized from everyone else? You know, she's got a disability. She has to sit inside and she has to read, and all she has to read is this religious text. Cool, I have all the power in the world. I can move these glasses with my mind, but I'm fucking stuck here and everyone hates me.
I'm a prisoner everywhere I go, and
Yeah.
It's just the father pushing that same sin down onto his daughter.
Yes.
Which is really, really fucked up way of looking at it. Because, you know, you could always look at it in the same sense, sort of like in reverse, that all the stuff that is in color is all reality, and it's just the thing that breaks down the Stalker into his fucking misery is like falling into the same traps that everybody else around him has fallen into.
Yes.
That's why a lot of the sepia tone stuff is set inside, or it's set in very like kind of like narrow or like almost designed areas. I don't know if many of these things are sets or not.
All the stuff that's sepia tone looks like eraser headsets. I think these actually came out close to the same time. Eraserhead was in production for 7 years.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't think there's intentional overlap. I think that is just Lynch and Tartakovsky probably have similar influences.
Having it all set in places that feel artificial makes you think, oh, okay, well, this is all the act. And it's all the stuff out in what is nature out in the real world, which is in color. And it's just overtaking all the sins of man. You know, you see machine guns laying underwater, just rotting the fuck away. And it's poisoning the land there, but, you know, it's over the course of time, that will be nothing, you know? But humans will be long gone, so on and so forth. That feels more real than the world that we have constructed for ourselves, I guess.
But then the irony is that a lot of times stuff like religion is used by fascists. To control large groups of people through thinking the identical thing. And if you think this way, well, you're with us and you're not against them. You know, large groups of fascists turning this like industrial area into where people have to be, but then, you know, you go outside and, oh, look how the world is once nature has reclaimed it. Look how the world used to be. The fact that it's a fantasy plays into this whole idea that people think the past is always better. Back in the past when things were good. But you know what? That's a fantasy.
Yeah.
The past is only good because you're nostalgically remembering it through rose-tinted glasses. You're seeing this dingy, fucked up world filled with smog and color because it feels better than where you're currently at. Guess what? All that area that you're fantasizing about is coated in nuclear fucking waste.
And I know at this point, the fucking Chernobyl incident had not happened yet.
Yeah.
But it's very clear that people were concerned. Very, very concerned about this thing. It's, you know, it seems alien, it seems extreme, it seems like science kind of killing nature almost.
Yes.
In nuclear, like, everything. Obviously, you have the very clear, you know, destruction of mankind in the dropping of 2 bombs on fucking Japan.
Yeah.
You can't fucking avoid that. And then people wonder, well, what the fuck else is this stuff doing to the planet?
And by the time this stuff comes in the 70s, there are already, whether or not it's public knowledge, fucking, like, photos and studies aware, that are making people aware of the effects that this had on the Japanese survivors of these bombs. You know, whether they're dying of radiation poisoning or there's just eternal, not eternal, but there's what feels I don't know, but there's, lifelong lasting effects to getting, this high a dosage of radiation. You can't get rid of that. You have introduced this sin, and what is the thing that the scientist is trying to use to destroy God? A fucking bomb.
Yeah.
It's not subtle. Like, I don't...
Yeah, no, just a literal miniaturized nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
The fucking core and everything. And all of this, of course, is then mirrored in real fucking life. They would go on to make fucking a video game called Stalker's Shadow of the Zone that is about taking these ideas and applying it in a literal sense to, like, Chernobyl, if that situation had never fucking been contained.
Yeah.
It's like a fantasy sort of situation about that. But also just things from this movie where, there's a zone of exclusion where you cannot enter because you will get sick and fucking die.
Yeah.
And that kind of plays into what I think is the darkest part about this movie.
That's the other fucking thing, is, like, it's not even a fucking thing that I don't think is, like, an interpretation. I think it's very literal. The dude has radiation poisoning.
Yeah.
By the end, his wife is giving him pills, and she looks directly into the camera, basically saying, like, it's once again a metaphor for being a religious zealot. People will ostracize you, people will treat you like shit, you will not be able to live a normal life, and that'll affect your child. The kid isn't able to walk because she's a result of a dude who's conceiving while his body is full of radiation. Like,
It's not subtle at all.
No.
If we're gonna get into the true thing about this movie that made me think about putting it on these decades of darkness, it is like my original take on the movie. I've kind of expanded my ideas a little bit, doing research and all this sort of thing, finding beauty in the color, but I think the fucking darkness comes from not just the monochrome sections, not just like the horrors found in the zone, but I think from not the subtext, but the literal text of the thing.
Yeah.
We go back to, like, a plot synopsis. It really can be boiled down to something very simple and very brutally honest about humanity.
Yeah.
Which Tarkovsky does really well. There is a zone of exclusion for one reason or another. We are vaguely pointed in the direction that it is something bigger than humanity, but humans fucked with it, and now we can't go back. This creates a situation where clearly people are going to seek answers, religious or otherwise. They're going to go out into the zone. You find people like stalkers that go out into the zone, they bring people with them, and they come back, they're polluted, they're irradiated, and they slowly but surely die trying to find answers for something.
And infect people as they're going back. Not just through residual radiation, but with their fucking ideology that they're going in.
Yeah.
With that.
And quite literally, he says, I don't see people when we come back. They go into the room, they make their wish, they leave, and I never see them again. They're gone. And by the end of it, his faith is being tested. He's lying sick in bed. He says, I can't do it anymore. And then that's kind of just the fucking end.
Yeah.
It goes without saying, this is a big thing if you know anything about the making of this movie. A lot of things that look like they're going to be special effects, that look like they're going to be like something that somebody did to be like, oh, a lot of like this really fucked up things that are happening in nature are not nature. That is the result of nearby either coal plants or paper processing plants or other sort of industrial waste getting into the nature around it and then fucking corrupting it.
Yeah.
There's that one shot where it looks like it's just earth, like ground, but it's wavering and it's like not solid. It kind of looks like something from fucking Midsummer almost.
Yeah.
But that's not because it's the ground and they did something to make that happen. That's not a camera trick. That's just reality. That's just pollution on top of what was once just water.
Yeah.
Runoff from toxic shit. And people were working on this movie had to get into the water. And in reality, they faced serious consequences from that.
Yeah.
People believe that Tarkovsky and many other people on this set they all got cancer, which is absolutely true. And, you know, putting 2 and 2 together, it was after waiting around in what is radioactive and toxic sludge from coal plants and all sorts of things. The making of this film, the darkest part about it is that it is just honest about the state of things. That we are killing the planet, and as a result, the planet is fucking killing us.
Yeah.
That's like not the thing, the absolute, because he had all sorts of ideas when he was making it, you know? It's been rewritten, reshot so many fucking times.
But the reality of the situation kind of takes over from that. Mm-hmm. Like, regardless of, like, what his intentions are, that ceases to matter when his own death kind of rewrites how you look at a movie.
Yeah. Once again, I would hate to be the guy to say I figured it out.
Yeah.
But I think it would be foolish to ignore that sort of thing.
Yeah, because I don't think you figured it out. I think the depressing reality that happens outside of the film suddenly makes the film's thesis that much more difficult to fucking swallow.
Oh, God. Are we really gonna do it?
What?
There's a section that's been in all these videos.
I don't know. Because there really isn't much.
Tommy's Musical Hour. Yep.
As a result of the guy being gone, Tarkovsky, I did not find much of him talking about this film in doing research. It's possible that there's some that I just didn't happen upon, but a lot of what I did read about and what I learned about, like special features, especially on this disc, is from the composer of the film. Once again, his name right here.
Yeah.
The film's composer quotes Tarkovsky as having said the following: "I don't need a composer, I need ears and a masterful command of sound. When I run out of cinematic means, that is when I use music," right? Mm-hmm. It's once again going back to the painting sort of thing, where it's just another layer on this overall fucking piece of art. It seems insignificant, and it seems small, and it seems like it might be lost to fucking time. That, okay, he used some classical pieces that just sort of connect back through history, and then he had this guy, you know, recreate the idea of being on a train and, like, visualizing music in your own fucking head as you watch the visuals go by through a fucking, the windows on the train, right? You're just watching the fucking landscape go by. It's really small and it's really interesting. It plays just that little fucking part in the movie. But I think even little things like that are infinitely important to this art piece. Everything from the squabbles that went on to get this thing fucking funded, the fact that it is technically a 2-part movie,
Yeah.
up to, like, the art that makes it, up to the world that fucking came to be in its, like, aftermath, right?
Yeah.
The death of Tarkovsky, further fucking nuclear disasters, all sorts of things, I think all go in to make this what it is. Art's not just this one thing that sits here and is. It extends forward into time and
Yeah.
fucking creates a sort of, like, almost fucking immortality for people.
And what is the thing that the writer said that he wanted out of his writing? If people aren't reading my books 100 years in the future, then what's the fucking point?
Exactly. It's fucking dark to think about, and in a way, really fucking beautiful. That's, I think, the end-all be-all for lots of these films in the decades of darkness, is that you have to have a fucking light side to everything.
Yes.
A reason to kind of come back around and be like, well, maybe there's not no hope. And now that I've bummed all of you guys out infinitely, and we'll have you thinking about this for the rest of the day at least, Colin, do you have any final closing thoughts that you want to put on?
Yeah, I guess in the way you viewed it and the way I viewed it, something that I think is important to take away from this, and it's something that helped me find comfort when I suddenly realized I was not sure if I believed in a higher power anymore when I was much younger.
Yeah.
I felt much like the main character. I had lost hope.
Yeah.
And what is there to look at in life anymore? And like a lot of people, you then go searching for what is the meaning of life. Hope does not simply exist as something that everyone can aspire to. I think everyone has to create their own hope. Everyone has to create their own purpose. Hope does not simply exist because you want to feel good about yourself. I think for a lot of people, you have to exist long enough in this world and you have to experience enough downtrodden, like difficult shit in your life to be able to figure out what life means at the end to you personally. There is not one universal meaning. So yes, young minds are malleable and you can fill their head with all this shit that's going to emotionally and just fucking generally stunt them from the outside world. But what's so great then is by time you experience enough shit in your life, you can then decide for yourself, is my purpose in life going to simply be hurting other people and trying to convince them that they need this gigantic scam to live? Or is it simply going to be live with the people that I love and trying to make others and myself happy?
With that, I think we'll wrap it up. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for watching. Colin, you want to do any promos for your next episode? I have a feeling it's going to be every Ingmar Bergman movie all at once.
No. In fact, I mean, I brought this up last episode. But we're high-tech and we're ready to fight. Those spy kids, they're here to save the world.